we're back with the Marchese and Buller show. Gary's drinking.
Hello.
And we were going to talk today about a subject that Gary brought to mind.
Yeah, it's just sometimes as a writer, you have these tools available to you, these submission tools. You have things like Submittable and you have Submission Grinder. You can sort of look at the statistics, when your story was submitted, when other people's stories were submitted, how long it takes for a reply to be given back, who's been replied to, and when. And I was saying sometimes it's a good thing and other times it's a bad thing because you sort of get false hopes from checking these things. And the reason why I sort of was saying this was because there's a quite famous magazine over here in England. I've submitted lots of stories to them. I was having a look on Submittable the other day, and I think I've submitted 15 stories to them. Rejected almost every time within a couple of days. Longest about a week. I've had my story now since, I think it's the 14th of last month. So we've had it a while. And I noticed on Submittable they'd read it or actioned it about 5 days ago. Mm-hmm. Anyway, like when you put two and two together and you sometimes get 6. I sort of looked at that, and then I looked at Submission Grinder and seeing that people have been submitting after my story, but they've been rejected one at a time. So what this tells me is they're still taking and reading and processing submissions, but mine for some reason is sort of been put aside, or if you look at it on the other side of the coin, been ignored, maybe, I don't know. But that can be a good sign in writing, because more often than not, or quite often with these big places, your story's read by a slush reader and goes, oh, this is a good story, and then they pass it on to a different tier, and then eventually it gets to the editor, and the editor then looks at it, and obviously this takes time. So more often than not, the longer a publication has your story, the better. So I'm looking at this thinking, ooh, this is looking really, really good. But then another person that we both know popped up and said, well, actually, I waited 3 months for a response from these guys, and then I got a rejection. What I kind of want to talk about with Will is, does he think these tools are a useful thing, or do you just think that it's best to sort of submit, ignore, get on with what you're doing, and then the acceptances and the rejections will roll in regardless? So just kind of interested to know what you and what the listeners think.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on the situation, right? So if it's, like you said, this is a pretty big place, you might want to know what the process is and who's reading what, and like what's part of the rejection or acceptance it's in. If it's a smaller place, you might just want to just let it be and just, see what's going on naturally. I mean, to be honest with you, if you're so busy writing new stories that you don't even think about it, that's probably good too, because you're not worrying about anything. You're moving on to the next story, where if you're checking to see your submission or the part that you're up to over and over again, you're not really, it's just going to eat away at you. It's going to make you a nervous wreck. And like you told me, you said you have 10 plus stories out there at once?
Yeah.
So it's like to check all those stories and see where they are in their different.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though. It's sort of like I got sort of a little bit focused on the submission I was telling you about, and then I was so focused on that I got an acceptance from somewhere else. It just came through on Thursday or Friday last week. I was like, oh, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, you see. So
so those who don't know, Submission Grinder is this tool, and you can use it to search for open markets for writing, your horror writing or anything, long, short form fiction, short fiction, flash fiction, novels, all genres, all word counts. You just type in the information about the story you're thinking of submitting, and it brings up a list of markets. And it goes one further than that. You can actually register with it, enter your details, and use it like a tracker for your submissions. And at the bottom of it, you've got this graph, and green is usually accepted stories, red is rejected stories, and then there's purple, which means stories that have been submitted but have not yet been rejected or accepted. With this submission that I was talking about, I could see that they were still accepting and rejecting stories after the one I submitted, but I don't want to get my hopes up. I said to you, Will, afterwards, I was like, I read it, knowing that it's been it's on hold for whatever reason, this story.
Yeah.
I reread it and straight away picked up a typo about like 4 paragraphs in, which I thought, I sort of managed to tidy up. And you're thinking to yourself, ooh, what's going on? But you never know.
Well, you also have to be registered for that, for it to show up on the grid, right? Or can,
No, anyone can view it. All of the people that are signed up and log their submissions, only their submissions appear on the graphs and in the stats. But people like me are almost like voyeurs. I am registered with it, but I don't use it. I just sort of watch and see how the markets are going and stuff.
Yeah.
My stats aren't tracked on there. But
here's for instance, someone like me, right? I'm not registered.
Mm-hmm.
If I went on there and I looked, because there was one time I did try it, and I was able to see some people, but I wouldn't be able to see my rejection.
No, because you're not registered. So what it is the facts you're seeing on Submission Grinder, the stats you're seeing, are submitted by the writers. The idea is you use it to track, as an individual writer like me and you go on there, you register, and you use Submission Grinder to track your own stories that you submit. But at the same time, it takes those statistics and populates these graphs and populates, acceptances and rejections in the markets. Based on that, if you're not registered there, it won't appear on there. It's not the job of the publisher to put that information up. So I'm a bit of a voyeur, as you are to a degree when you go on there, because you're not registered, you're not tracked on there. So, but it is useful. But it is useful to know. For example, it's very, very handy if you've been waiting 3 months for an acceptance or a rejection on a story. You go to that market and you look at it and you see nobody's been accepted or rejected, and that market's not been touched for 3 months. You got a pretty good idea then that you either email that market and ask them what's going on, or you can just pull your story and send it somewhere else. It's good from that point of view. You can see. It also shows you when the last acceptance or rejection was from that market. So if Will Marchese magazine was up and running, it'd obviously be a pornographic one. But if we like a big bear magazine, if that was taking accepting stories of fiction, and I was a writer and I submitted there and I heard nothing for 3 months, and I looked, I could then see, Will's actually the last acceptance or rejection he gave was in November, and it's now March.
Yeah.
So what the hell? In fact, nobody's been accepted or rejected since then. So has he gone out of business? Is he not working anymore? Is it a dead letter? And from that perspective as well, it's good. If I want to submit to Will Marchese magazine, I can go on there beforehand and look and see how frequently you're processing your submissions. If it says the average time for you to respond to me is, and it does tell you this stats, if it says the average time it takes for you to respond to me is going to be 60 days, and the last time you responded was like 2017, I'd be like, right, okay, maybe I don't want to submit to Will Marchese magazine.
On that note, use Submission Grinder. I'm going to check it out too. Maybe I'll sign up for it. It's free, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's run by, I think it's Mad Scientist Journal. No, Diabolical Plots. They're a magazine.
I think it's Diabolical Plots, yeah.
Yeah, they run it. It's fantastic. I use it all the time.
Check that out, and we will be back on Wednesday. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
It's all with Marchese and Paul. It's all with Marchese and Paul.
Well, on that note,
yeah,
what was that?
That was my boiler again.
Oh, okay. There we go.
There you go.
I thought we weren't gonna have any bloopers this
Says the dog's unhappy. There he is.
Oh boy.
Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss.
Oh, look at this.
Okay, maybe I don't want to submit to Will Marchese magazine, no matter how strong and buff the guys are in it.
Submit.
Submit.
Hey, oh man. I gotta. Oh.
That's
Well,
the finger that goes.
oh, jeez.